rewrote human history, and its DNA still lives inside millions of people today. Scientists weren't supposed to find this, but ancient DNA revealed a lost humanity. This skull was hidden for 90 years, and it belongs to a human species we never knew existed.
For over a century, scientists believed our ancient world was home to just two kinds of humans, Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens. That assumption held firm until a fragment of bone no longer than 12 millimeters rewrote the entire story of human evolution. In 2008, deep inside Denisova Cave, in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia, archaeologists uncovered a tiny, unremarkable sliver of bone. It came from the pinky finger of a young girl who had died tens of thousands of years ago. At first glance, it looked like nothing special, but what it carried inside would change everything. The fragment was carefully sent to Leipzig, Germany, to the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. There, geneticist Svante Pääbo and his team began the delicate process of extracting ancient DNA. This kind of work demands extreme precision. Ancient DNA is fragile, fragmented, and easily contaminated. The team started with mitochondrial DNA, which is more abundant and more likely to survive deep time. As the sequences came in, something astonishing appeared. The genetic code did not match modern humans. It didn't match Neanderthals either. Instead, it represented a completely different lineage, one that had split from our own nearly 1 million years ago. In 2010, the results were published in Nature. The conclusion was unavoidable. A third type of human had lived alongside Neanderthals and early modern humans. A lost branch of humanity, unknown to science until now. They were named the Denisovans, after the cave where the bone was found. The implications were staggering. Neanderthals had left behind hundreds of fossil skulls, limbs, even partial skeletons. Denisovans, by contrast, were almost invisible. At first, they were known only from a finger bone, a few oversized molars, and later, scattered fragments. No complete face, no full skeleton. An entire population identified first not by bones, but by molecules. To understand what Denisovans may have looked like, scientists turned to DNA methylation patterns, chemical markers that influence how genes are expressed. These patterns suggested dark hair, darker skin, and broad facial features, but this was indirect evidence. The truth remained frustratingly out of reach. What was clear, however, was their genetic diversity. Denisovan DNA showed more variation than all sequenced Neanderthals combined. This was not a small, isolated group. It was a widespread, deeply rooted population that had shaped human history in ways no one had suspected. Then came a discovery high above the clouds. In 1980, on the Tibetan plateau, a Buddhist monk, searching for religious relics, entered Baisia Karst Cave. At more than 3,200 meters above sea level, the air is thin, the cold unforgiving. Inside the cave, he found a heavy, weathered jawbone buried in sediment. Not knowing its true importance, he handed it to local authorities. It was placed in a museum and forgotten. Nearly 40 years later, researchers from Longo University and the Max Planck Institute revisited the fossil. Hopes of extracting DNA were quickly crushed. The harsh environment had destroyed it. But the team turned to something more resilient than DNA. Protein. Using collagen fingerprinting, they extracted ancient protein sequences from the jawbone. Collagen can survive for hundreds of thousands of years, preserving evolutionary clues long after DNA is gone. The result was unmistakable. The proteins matched those of Denisovan fossils from Siberia. Dating placed the jawbone at least 160,000 years old. This was the first Denisovan fossil found outside Siberia and the first discovered at extreme high altitude. Its thick bone and robust structure hinted at immense physical strength. But the real revelation was what it meant for human adaptation. Modern Tibetans carry a gene called EPAS1, which allows them to thrive in low-oxygen environments. That genetic identity come from modern humans. It came from Denisovans. Long before our species arrived, Denisovans had already mastered life on the roof of the world, yet they still had no face. That would change with a skull hidden for nearly a century. In 1933, a laborer working on a bridge near Harbin in northeastern China uncovered a massive human skull. Fearing it would be confiscated by occupying forces, he wrapped it carefully and hid it at the bottom of an abandoned well. There it remained for almost 90 years. Only after his death did his family reveal the secret. In 2018, the skull was finally handed over to scientists. The cranium was enormous, with thick brow ridges and a wide, powerful face. Some researchers proposed it belonged to a new species, Homo longi, nicknamed Dragon Man. Others suspected a connection to Denisovans, but proof was elusive. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: dental calculus. In 2025, scientists extracted mitochondrial DNA from hardened plaque clinging to the skull's teeth. Out of 20 samples, only 7 produced usable genetic material. Every step was checked for contamination. The results were clear. The mitochondrial DNA clustered tightly with Denisovans from Denisova Cave, especially older specimens. The Harbin skull was Denis. For the first time, humanity could look into the face of this lost lineage. What began as a single laborer-esque quiet act of defiance ended one of paleoanthropology-esque greatest debates. Denisovans were no longer faceless ghosts. They had a skull, a presence, a place in history. And their story kept growing. Across Asia, scientists began extracting ancient DNA not from bones, but from sediment. In caves from Tibet to Southeast Asia, Denisovan genetic traces emerged from the soil itself. At Krause Cave, sediment layers revealed Denisovan DNA, spanning more than 50,000 years. In Laos, protein analysis of a single tooth confirmed their presence deep in tropical forests. Even where fossils were missing, their DNA remained. Then came evidence of something even more extraordinary. In Denisova Cave, a small bone fragment revealed a child whose mother was Neanderthal and whose father was Denisova, a direct hybrid. Proof that ancient human groups didn't just coexist, they interbred. The Denisovans did not vanish without a trace. Today, people in Melanesia and parts of Oceania carry up to 6% Denisovan DNA, the highest known anywhere on Earth. They are not just a chapter in prehistory. They are part of us. As ancient molecules continue to rewrite the human story, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Our origins are far more complex and far more connected than we ever imagined. And with every new fragment recovered from bone, soil, or tooth, the story of who we are continues to change.